In this video, I'm going to show you how to use data validation in Google Sheets. So data validation is super helpful because you can use it to create drop-down lists. You can use it to create checkboxes. You can use it so that you can force users to enter certain kinds of data in cells, and if it does not meet the requirements that you specify, it can throw an error or prevent it from being entered in the first place. So it's very useful for forcing users to enter only certain kinds of data and then making sure your sheet is organized. So there's a few different ways that you can set up data validation. There's a few different criteria we can use. There's list from a range, list of items, number, text, date, custom formula is, and checkbox. I'm going to go through each of these. So the first one I'm going to cover is called list from a range. This is useful for creating a drop-down list. So what you want to do to use list from a range to create a drop-down list is first select the cell where you want the drop-down list to appear, and then what you do is you go up to data validation. So I am going to do list from a range. That's the first one I'm going over. So after you select list from a range, then what you want to do is you want to put in the range of cells that you want to use. So I'm going to do A2 to A8 because that is where my data is. And then I'm going to make sure this show drop down list in a cell option is checked. And then I hit save. And so what this does is it creates a drop down list from the range that I selected. So now depending on what the users select, it'll only show that value. So this is useful if you want to restrict your users to only enter certain values in your spreadsheet. The next one that I'm going to show is called list of items. Now this one's very similar to the one we just covered. So I'm going to go up data validation, list of items, except this one I don't put in a range. I just enter my values manually separated by a comma. So maybe I will do yes, no. And then you can see there's a yes, no little drop down list. So this one is good for shorter lists, like a yes, no or something similar. If you're doing a longer list, you probably want to use list from a range as your data validation criteria. So the next one that I'm going to cover is number. Number, you can set up a number of rules. I'm just going to show you. We'll use this range and set up a data validation. So number, you have a lot of different rules that you can set up. You can do between, not between, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. I am going to do between. Maybe I will just set up if I'm rating employees on a scale of 1 to 10 or something, I will set this up. And then I'll start rating people, and you can see if someone enters something outside of that range, you're going to get this warning message. So this is useful for setting up certain rules so you can ensure your users are only entering data numbers that fall within whatever rules you set up. So you will notice in data validation, there's two settings here for what happens if there's invalid data. You can either select show warning, which is what I just had, where there's that little red mark in the top corner, or you can do reject input altogether. So what this should do is, you'll get this pop-up here. It's going to restrict you from even entering data in the first place if you select that option. So depending on if you want to just show a warning or just restrict the data altogether, you can play with those settings. But that's pretty much it for the number criteria. The next criteria is text, which is pretty much similar to the number. They just have certain criteria you can set up based on the text. So you can do text that contains certain values, text that doesn't contain, text that's equal to. You can also do is an email or is it URL if you want to restrict your users to only enter those kinds of text. So that is a pretty useful one. The next one is date. So you have a few options with this. You just select date. Now you can just force them to enter any valid date, a specific date, dates before a certain value, dates that are on or before your date, after, on or after, between or not between. So this works pretty much similar to number and text, but your rules that you can choose from apply to dates. So that's a useful one. Another one is custom formula is. With this one, you can set up a custom formula with different functions or math operators to ensure that data entered follows your chosen format or rules. So this one's really powerful. I will just show you how to use it. I'm going to set up a custom formula that I only can enter data in column B if column A is set to yes. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to highlight my range in column B, and then I'm going to set up data validation, and then custom formula is, so I only want to be able to enter data in column B if cell A2 equals yes. So you have to understand relative versus absolute cell references here. This one I'm doing a relative reference so that as I go down in cells, my cell reference will change. So custom formula is if A2 is equal to yes, then I'll be able to enter data in column B. So yes, and then I can start entering values in here. If I enter a value and there is not a yes in column A, you can see I get this warning. So this can be useful. This is just one example of a way you can use it. Again, it's a custom formula, so you can actually use it in a ton of different ways. So the last one that I'm going to show is checkbox. So this one is pretty simple. You just create a checkbox. So I'm going to go data validation, checkbox, and then I'm going to save. And so this creates a checkbox. So you can see in this example, I just have different steps, and I'm marking off when I completed the steps. One useful thing to note with the checkbox data validation criteria is that you can see my boxes that are checked, the cell returns a true value. My boxes that are unchecked, the cell returns a false value. So this is useful because you can apply conditional formatting or other formulas to kind of reference whether these are true or false. So if you really want to take your spreadsheets up to the next level, you can start adding in customizations using this. So I know one thing I've seen people do when they're doing like a step spreadsheet is when this is marked true, they'll have a conditional formatting so that this is maybe strike through or something like that, or other conditional formatting. You can also customize what these cells return when they are checked. So that would just be in use custom cell values. If you want to return something other than true or something other than false, you can set that up. But that is pretty much it for this video. Those are the different types of data validation criteria you can use. If you want to go over these in further detail, I'm going to place a link to the blog description or the blog post in the video description, so you can read that if you're still confused. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions or content suggestions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to answer everyone.